Hi guys, this is Alice Cat AG, and today I'm going to be reading Meet Addy. Chapter 1, Whispers of Freedom. Addie Walker woke up late on a summer's night to hear her parents whispering. She thought no more of their quiet voices than of the soft chirping of the crickets in the woods just beyond the little cabin. Often she awoke to her parents whispering. Addie liked the sound. It made her feel safe knowing her mother and father were close by. A small fire glowed in the hearth as the last coals burned down from the fire Mama had used to cook supper. Usually Addie liked the warm glow of the coals in the darkness. It was the only light in the windowless cabin. But tonight it just made her hotter. Sweat crawled down her small body like ants. The stiff, dry corn husk stuffing her palate poked through her thin covering, sticking her. Her older brother Sam laid on his own pallet near her feet. Addie could see his dark face in the firelight and hear his regular breathing. Her baby sister Esther lay next to her. Esther's steamy breath was blowing on Addie's face. Addie loved Esther, but it was too hot to be close to her tonight. Addie tried to wriggle away from the baby. When she turned from Esther, her parents stopped talking. "Hush, Ben," Mama said to Papa. "I think Addie woke up." Addie kept her eyes closed, but she could hear the rustle of corn husks when her father got up. His feet softly crossed the dirt floor. She opened her eyes just slightly as his shadow passed over her, covering her and Esther and Sam. Addie felt protected inside of it. She wanted to ask, "Papa, what are you and Mama talking about?" But she kept her mouth shut. When her parents started talking again, she listened. "That child asleep, Ruth," Papa said to Mama, returning to their pallet. "She tired out." They had the children out in the fields half the day worming the tobacco plants. "Ben, listen to me," Mama said. Her voice was serious. "I don't think we should run now. The war is going to be over soon, and then we'll be free. Ruth, I done told you before, them Union soldiers ain't nowhere near our part of North Carolina. They're all the way clear on the other side of the state," Addie's father replied. "Who knows when we gonna be free?" "But, Ben, we can't lose nothing by waiting. We're all here together. That count for something," Mama argued. "Ruth, it should count, but you know it don't. With this war, time's hard. Money is real tight for the masters. A whole group of slaves was sold off the Gifford plantation because Master Gifford couldn't afford to feed and clothe them," Papa said. "That was Master Gifford. Master Stevens would never sell us. We work hard for him. We do everything he tells us. He need me to do sewing and you to do his carpenter work." Addie had never heard her mother speak so firmly. "What about Sam?" Papa went on. "I got to drag him off his pallet when the morning work horn sound. He'd get up grumbling about not wanting to work for the master, and he'd take his grumbling out into the fields. He got a hot head and a hot mouth. Sam done run off once, and now he want to go fight in the war. All he talk about is going north to fight for freedom. If Sam don't watch it, he's going to be getting us all in trouble." Addie didn't like what she heard. She remembered when Sam had run off the year before, shortly before Esther was born. He was tracked down by Master Stevens' dogs and brought back. He was tied to a tree and beaten with a whip by Master Stevens. Addie screamed and cried, but her parents did not. They had blank, empty faces that made Addie angry. When the beating was over, Sam's back was covered in blood. Papa carried him back to the cabin, and Mama and Papa cleaned blood from him. Finally, Addie yelled at her parents, "Y'all don't care about Sam at all. Y'all not even crying." As soon as she said it, she felt bad. "Come here," her father had said softly. Addie went to him, ashamed to look at his dark, stubbly face. She held her face down, but her father lifted it and wiped away her tears. "Just 'cause you don't see us crying and carrying on don't mean we don't care. It don't mean we ain't crying either. Me and your mama crying on the inside. We ain't always free to show our feelings on the outside, but on the inside we's free. And there's always freedom inside your head, Addie. Freedom. That was what her parents were talking about tonight. But they were talking about a different kind of freedom. They were talking about the kind of freedom a slave had to run away to get. If Sam takes off by himself a second time, we may never see him again, Mama said in a worried whisper. I want us to all be together. Papa didn't answer right away. Then he said, Uncle Solomon told me in the field today that there's a set of railroad tracks about 10 miles after the river near Gifford Place. We follow them north till they cross another set of tracks. Where they cross, there's a white house with red shutters. It's a safe house. An old white woman lives there named Miss Caroline. She's going to help us. We only got to get that far, Papa said. In the dark, Addie hugged Janie, the small rag doll Mama had made for her, the doll she slept with every night. Her parents' talk about running away scared her. She had never heard them talk about it before. Whenever Sam talked about escaping, they told him to hush up. If we get caught, Master Stephen's going to split us up for sure, Mama said, her voice shaky. I figure ain't nothing for sure, answered Papa. But we got to take our chances while we got 'em. You can't go backing out on me now. I'm not backing out, Mama said. She sounded cross. I'm just scared. You want to go all the way to Philadelphia. I ain't never been no farther than Gifford Plantation. What if we get lost from each other? We're going to go together. We're going to stay together. God will watch over us. You got to believe we're going to make it north. Papa sounded sure and strong. Addie knew he could protect them no matter what. Let's just wait a little longer. When the war over, we all gonna be free. All of us right here, Mama said again. But Papa was firm. I hurt when I see Addie toting heavy water buckets to the fields, or when I see her working there, bent over like an old woman. Sam already 15, but she a little girl, 9 years old and smart as they come. She go out in the morning, her eyes all bright and shining with hope. By night she comes stumbling in here so tired she can hardly eat. Esther's still a little baby, but Addie getting beat down every day. I can't stand back and watch it no more. We can't wait for our freedom. We gonna have to take it. Mama was quiet again. Addie wasn't thinking about the heat of the cabin, her prickly palate or Esther's hot breath. She was waiting for her mother's answer. None came. She heard her father rise. He went to the hearth and covered the coals with ashes. When Addie heard him lie down, her eyes popped open. But now Addie could see nothing. There was no light in the cabin. In the thick darkness, Addie knew she had heard a secret that she must keep to herself, no matter how hot it burned inside of her. She could feel Esther's breath on her back. Turning to face her sister, she moved close and put her arms around her. The baby's breath did not feel too warm now. Addie was glad Esther was there on a pallet with her. As Addie fell asleep, the only voices she could hear in the night were those of the crickets in the woods. Chapter 2. Sold. Early the next morning, Addie was in the tobacco field warming the plants. She and the other children moved from row to row, carefully pulling green, wiggling worms from the leaves. The worms were as fat as her fingers, but Addie tried not to think about them. Instead, she dreamed about the kind of freedom Mama and Papa had talked about the night before, the kind slaves ran away for. She saw herself learning to read and write. First, she'd write the names of everyone in her family. She saw herself wearing fancy dresses with lace, nothing like the rough cotton shift she always wore now. Papa would get paid for his work and buy so much food they would never be hungry. He would buy cloth for her fancy dresses, and Mama would make them for her. By 11 o'clock, the sun was high overhead, and Addie felt as if she'd worked all day. She had just finished worming her rows when it was time for her next chore, taking water to the field hands. The full bucket of water she carried almost pulled her arm from her shoulder. As Addie struggled with the bucket, sweat ran down her dark face and soaked the neck of her shift. But she liked the chore because she sometimes had a chance to see Sam or Papa. On this day she saw Sam. As usual, he had a riddle for her. "Riddle me this," said Sam. "What's smaller than a dog, but can put a bear on the run?" Addie thought hard as Sam took the dipper from the bucket and poured some water over his head. From a few rows away, the overseer snarled, "That water's for drinking, boy." Addie saw a scowl come over Sam's face. He mumbled, "Even a horse gotta stop and cool off sometime." "I better get on," Addie said, worried that the overseer might come over to them. He carried a whip. "Nah," Sam said, his face softening. He was as tall as Papa, but he was skinny. When he smiled, Sam still looked like a little boy. "I ain't done drinking yet, and you ain't answered my riddle. What's smaller than a dog but can put a bear on the run?" he repeated. He took a drink, while Addie thought. She looked up to see where the overseer was. He'd gone off in another direction. Addie crinkled up her eyebrows and said, "A skunk?" "You're right. I don't know about you. You're too smart for me, girl. Pretty soon you're gonna be riddling me," Sam said. "Real soon," Addie said, smiling at her brother. Addie wanted to tell Sam what she had heard their parents talking about the night before, but the escape plan was so daring and dangerous she could not share it with anyone, not even her brother. If her parents had wanted her and Sam to know, they would have told them, so Addie kept the secret inside and moved down the road to give the next field hand a drink. When the bucket was empty, she headed toward the kitchen to help Aunt Lula serve dinner to Master Stevens. The kitchen was a small brick building behind the big house. Addie hurried there, afraid she might be late. Auntie Lula was ready for Addie to work as soon as she stepped into the building. "Wash your hands good," she said, "and take that tray of food and water to the dining room." "Yes, ma'am," Addie answered. She liked Auntie Lula. She was an old woman, old enough to be Addie's grandmother. Her skin was light and rusty, and her rusty red hair was streaked with gray. She had a soft, open face, but sharp green eyes that could see right through you. Auntie Lula looked after Addie and her family. She gave them medicine when they were sick. One Christmas, she had made rock candy for Addie and Sam. The dinner Auntie Lula cooked for Master Stevens smelled so good. Addie ached for a bite of it. All she had had for breakfast was cornmeal mush, and that was all she would have for dinner. Maybe Auntie Lula would hide away a few scraps for Addie to eat today. Addie washed and dried her hands, and then picked up the tray and hurried to the dining room. Master Stevens was sitting at the table talking with another white man, someone Addie had never seen before. She set the food on the table and then poured water for both men. As they began to eat, she took her place standing quietly in the corner. "You got that little girl trained real good," the man said to Master Stevens. "She looks like a smart one." "I got them all trained real good," said Master Stevens. "That's why it's such a shame to let any of them go." Addie's stomach turned when she heard Master Stevens say those words. "Let any of them go?" she thought. "What he mean, let go?" "But I have 22 slaves to clothe and feed this winter," Master Stevens went on. "And you know how hard it is with the war. I need money." Addie stared at the floor, but she was listening very closely. She let her face go blank and empty. "This boy you got for me," said the man. "How can I be sure he won't run on me too? I know he's run before." "I taught him a lesson with a whip last time he ran off," Master Stevens answered. "And you'll have his father too. His father can control him." They were talking about selling Sam and Papa. Addie just knew they were. Her father had been right. Master Stevens was going to split up their family. "Hey, girl, more water," the strange man said, turning to Addie. Addie hurried to pour him more water. "You sure you don't want to part with this one?" the man asked Master Stevens, patting Addie on the hand. Addie's hand shook. She wanted to pull away from his touch, to scream, but the blank look was frozen on her face. She filled the man's glass and started to pour water from Master Stevens. "I'm not looking to sell her," Master Stevens replied. "But I know the price for good house servants is going up every day." Maybe when she's a little older I'll let her go too. By then she might fetch a good a price as her brother, but she's just too young now." Addie was listening so hard she forgot to pay attention to her task and filled Master Stephen's glass too full. Water spilled on the table. "See, I told you this one's too young," Master Stephen said to the man. To Addie, he said sharply, "Girl, go get a rag and clean up this mess." "Yes, sir," Addie said. She was glad to have a reason to run back to the kitchen. She burst through the door. "Auntie Lula," she panted, "that man's fixin' to take Sam and Papa with him. Master Stephen's going to sell 'em." Auntie Lula looked worried, but when she spoke her voice was calm. "If that be true, we don't have much time," Auntie Lula said. "Listen to me good now. Take your bucket and run to the well. Fill the bucket and head right to the fields where your brother and father are at." "But I already took water," Addie replied. "Hush up, child," Auntie Lula hissed. "You a smart girl. Act like you think it's time for the afternoon water. Walk right out to Sam and your papa and tell 'em what you heard. If that man really come for 'em, it's the one chance they had to run away. I'll go back to the dining room. Now, you get." Grabbing her bucket, Addie ran to the well. She ran as fast as she could, her bare feet kicking up little puffs of dust, her thick braids beating against her shoulders. "Please don't let him take Sam and Papa. Please, God," she prayed silently as she ran. When Addie came to the well, she filled her bucket. She tried to run with it, but the water splashed crazily over the sides. With less than half of it left, she headed toward the field, walking as fast as she could. Her throat was dry. "Sam, Papa, where you at?" she screamed inside. Outside, her eyes desperately searched the huge field. Addie was looking for Sam and Papa and didn't see the overseer until he stepped right into her path. "Hey, girl," he barked at her. "What you think you doing?" Addie was so startled she dropped her bucket. "I come to bring the afternoon water," she said. "It ain't time for their afternoon water, you stupid girl. Get on out of here." "I thought it was," Addie stammered. "Don't give me back talk," the overseer snarled. Addie felt frantic, but she said nothing more. She picked up her bucket and ran back to the kitchen. When she got there, she saw her mother and baby Esther with Auntie Lula. Addie rushed to Mama and threw her arms around her. "Mama, they sellin' Sam and Papa. I tried to warn them, Mama, I tried," she cried, burying her face in her mother's shoulder. "I know you did," her mother said softly. "Auntie Lula told me." "Master Stephen said that man headed for the barn," Auntie Lula interrupted. "Maybe they got Sam and your papa there." Addie's head jerked up. Maybe there was one last chance. Maybe she could still warn Sam and Papa. Addie raced out the door and headed for the barn. "Addie!" her mama called after her. "Wait!" But Addie did not stop. She was not thinking, not praying, just running, running, running. When she came to the field, she saw a wagon. Sam was in it, bound and gagged, shackled hand and foot. Master Stevens and the man from the dining room and two other white men as big as Papa were standing next to the wagon. "Sam!" Addie cried when she reached the wagon. "Oh, please, Master Stevens," Addie begged. "Don't let them take Sam." "Get out of here, Addie," Master Stevens ordered. He had a whip in his hand. Addie stopped where she was. Then she heard a deeper voice. "Addie, go on now." It was her father's voice. But where was he? She looked down and then saw him lying on the ground, being chained by the overseer. Papa's face was covered with dirt, but it was calm. She ran to him, falling on the ground next to him. "Oh, Papa, no, no!" She threw her arms around him. He looked up at Addie. "Everything's going to be all right, honey. You go on." There were no tears on his face, but Addie knew he was crying inside. "Get back, girl," Master Stevens barked. Addie heard his whip crack. She felt a lash of fire on her back as if she'd been burned, but still she held on to Papa. Master Stevens growled at her. "I told you to get, now get before I whip you again." He reached for Addie and yanked her away from Papa. Addie fell backward into her mother's arms. Mama held Addie close, both of them crying. This time, even Mama couldn't keep the pain hidden on the inside. That's all for now. I'll read chapters 3 and 4 in the next one. Have a good day!